The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
We have decided to grant candidate status to Ukraine and Moldova, and we are ready to grant candidate status to Georgia once priorities will be addressed.
This is a very defining moment and a very good day for Europe today. I warmly congratulate President Zelensky, President Sandu, President Zurabishvili. All three countries are part of our European family. We've never let any doubt about that. And today's historic decision by leaders confirms that.
I just wanted to stress just how important this historic moment is in the context we're living through right now, a war decided on by Russia against Ukraine and its people on Ukraine's soil. We're offering now a European perspective to Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia. That's a strong signal towards Russia in the current geopolitical context, with our choice to give Ukraine and Moldova the status of being candidates to join the EU. Also, we decided the candidate status will be granted to Georgia once they have met the priorities which have been identified by the Commission.
This is The Checkpoints. I'm Elena Gvangelashvili, and the Checkpoints team has worked hard to provide you with the most accurate and diverse information about business and economics. We knew it was coming. European perspective for Georgia without granting candidate status until the government adheres to all 12 reforms as the main preconditions for the status. What did the European Commission say about the EU membership application by Georgia? Overall, as regards the political criteria, Georgia has a foundation in place to reach the stability of institutions guaranteeing democracy, the rule of law, human rights, and respect for and protection of minorities, even if recent developments have undermined the country's progress. As regards the economic criteria, Georgia has achieved a good degree of macroeconomic stability with a track record of sound economic policy and a favorable business environment. In order to improve the functioning of its market economy, further reforms and investment are needed to ensure long-term inclusive growth and external competitiveness. In order to reinforce the capacity of the country to cope with competitive pressure in the EU, Georgia needs to strengthen, in particular, its human capital, particularly through education reform to ensure skills for the labor market and innovativeness, strengthen physical infrastructure, including renewable energy generation and transport infrastructure, as well as access to global value chains. As regards the capacity to fulfill the obligations of membership, Georgia has worked since 2016 on the implementation of the EU-Georgia Association Agreement, including a deep and comprehensive free trade area. These agreements already capture an unprecedented amount of the EU acquis. Georgia has gradually approximated to substantial elements of the EU acquis across many chapters. It has an overall positive track record of implementation, while in some sectors the country is more advanced than in others. Overall, Georgia has established a solid basis for further alignment. So what are some conclusions and recommendations that the European Commission has reached for Georgia? The Commission recommends to the Council that Georgia should be given the perspective to become a member of the European Union. The Commission recommends that Georgia be granted candidate status once the following priorities will have been addressed. Address the issue of political polarization through ensuring cooperation across political parties in the spirit of the April 19 agreement. Guarantee the full functioning of all state institutions, strengthening their independence and effective accountability, as well as their democratic oversight functions. Further improve the electoral framework, addressing all shortcomings identified by OSCE, ODIHR, and Council of Europe Venice Commission in these processes. Adopt and implement a transparent and effective judicial reform strategy and action plan post-2021 based based on a broad, inclusive and cross-party consultation process. Ensure a judiciary that is fully and truly independent, accountable and impartial along the entire judicial institutional chain. Also, to safeguard the separation of powers. Notably ensure the proper functioning and integrity of all judicial and prosecutorial institutions, in particular the Supreme Court, and address any shortcomings identified, including the nomination of judges at all levels and of the Prosecutor General. Undertake a thorough reform of the High Council of Justice and appoint the High Council's remaining members. All these measures need to be fully in line with European standards and the recommendations of the Venice Commission. Strengthen the independence of its anti-corruption agency, bringing together all key anti-corruption functions, in particular to rigorously address high-level corruption cases. Equip the new Special Investigative Service and Personal Data Protection Service with resources commensurate to their mandates and ensure their institutional independence. Implement the commitment to de-oligarchization by eliminating the excessive influence of vested interests in economic, political and public life. Strengthen the fight against organized crime based on detailed threat assessments, notably by ensuring rigorous investigations, prosecutions and a credible track record of prosecutions and convictions. Guarantee accountability and oversight of law enforcement agencies. Undertake stronger efforts to guarantee a free, professional, pluralistic and independent media environment, notably by ensuring that criminal procedures brought against media owners fulfill the highest legal standards, and by launching impartial, effective and timely investigations in cases of threats against safety of journalists and other media professionals. Move swiftly to strengthen the protection of human rights of vulnerable groups, including by bringing perpetrators and instigators of violence to justice more effectively. Notably, consolidate efforts to enhance gender equality and fight violence against women. Ensure the involvement of civil society in decision-making processes at all levels. Adopt legislation so that Georgian courts proactively take into account European Court of Human Rights judgments in their deliberations. Ensure that an independent person is given preference in the process of nominating a new public defender, ombudsperson, and that this process is conducted in a transparent manner. Ensure the office's effective institutional independence. The Commission says it will monitor Georgia's progress to address these priorities and report on them by the end of 2022. In the end, here is the timeline and key dates for Georgia. On March 3, 2022, Georgia presented its application for membership of the European Union. The application was tabled in the context of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. On March 7, 2022, the Council of the European Union requested the Commission to submit its opinion on this application. EU heads of state and government endorsed this decision at the informal leaders meeting in Versailles. Georgia received questionnaires on April 11, 2022 on the political and economic criteria and on April 19 on the EU Acquis chapters, and provided its replies on May 2nd and on May 10. I said we knew it was coming because the recommendation already said it all. But we, the people of Georgia, grabbed the last chance that we had and hit the main avenue in Tbilisi in front of the Parliament of Georgia to show the world that we want to come back home, and our home is Europe.
Dear members of the Council, as you're about to decide the European future of our country, we, the representatives of the Georgian people, would like to kindly remind you that Georgia is one of the oldest European nations. Throughout centuries, we have never questioned our European destiny and made everything possible to approach the dream of every single generation of this country, to reunite with the European family. We have believed in Europe more than anyone else throughout the last 3 decades after regaining of our independence, and paid an ultimate price for our European choice. We believed in you more than anyone else, since with your uninterrupted help, we were able to start the rebuilding of our nation. We believe in the future of Europe, since there has never been any better alternative for us. Now, when the most important step on our European path is so near. We hope that you will believe in us more than anyone else. And Georgia, and grant Georgia the candidate status together with our friends, Ukraine and Moldova. Georgian people has earned the European perspective long ago and now deserves to be accepted as the candidate country of the European Union. All of us count on your support.
Since 1992, with the establishment of diplomatic relations between Georgia and the European Union, the EU has supported Georgia through a wide range of instruments and has become the biggest donor to Georgia. Under the Multi-Annual Financial Framework, MFF, the total amount of EU assistance to Georgia exceeds billion euros. In addition, the EU helps the country with separate programs, grants, soft loans and financial instruments. The last 7-year cycle of the MFF, which covers the years from 2014 to 2022, was focused on the economic development of Georgia, the development of state institutions, social challenges, and the implementation of infrastructure projects. Under the multi-annual framework for 2014-2022, Georgia received financial assistance of around 119 million euros, that's about 2.5 billion lari from the EU. Under the MMF for 2007-2013, Georgia received 452 million euro, that's about 1.4 billion lari in assistance. In this case, the EU's top priority was to promote democratic governance and the rule of law in Georgia. In addition, the EU has assisted Georgia in attracting investment, regional development, social projects and reforms. According to the information provided to Forbes Georgia by the EU delegation, the current cycle of the MFF, which covers the years 2021-2027, has not been fully agreed yet. Therefore, it is still too early to talk about future funding. In addition to bilateral assistance, Georgia also receives macro-financial assistance from the European Union, including grants and soft loans. Under this program, Georgia received 75 million euro in 2021, and the government refused to accept another 75 million tranche. The amount of aid received in 2020 was 75 million euros, while in 2018-2019, Georgia received 45 million euro. In 2011-2015, Georgia received 46 million euros from the EU. In addition to the above project, Georgia received an additional 250 million from the European Union to deal with the COVID pandemic. The logical question is, of course, to ask what type of financial support might Georgia lose without candidate status. To be frank, it is hard to find one answer. Looking at different analysis of different diplomats and analytics, here's what type of conclusions we have drawn. All analyses include the access that candidate countries have to the pre-accession financial instrument funds, that's the IPA third 2021-2027, which includes 14 billion euros and 5 thematic areas: strengthening institutional and administrative capacity, candidate and potential candidate, cross-border cooperation, candidate and potential candidate, development of rural and community settlements, candidate only, development of regions, candidate only, human resource development, candidate only. Some analysis also includes the Economic and Investment Program 2021-2027, which provides mobilization of 30 billion euro from international financial institutions, EIB, KfW, EBRD, WB, IMF, etc. And the private sector, 9 billion grant and 20 billion investments of financial investments, as well as investments in the following areas: transport, private sector development, human resources, and so far. Candidate countries might have access to all EU programs. Today, we have access to only a small part out of 11 programs such as Erasmus+, Horizon 2020, Creative Europe. Also, the so-called funding from the EU Neighborhood Development Development and International Cooperation Instrument, NDICI, funds might be available, amounting to euro 19 billion for 2021 to 2027. Elguja Khokrishvili, Georgia's former ambassador to Germany, for example, wrote that the use of this financial assistance will depend on the individual progress made by the candidate countries on the path to European integration. Utilizing these opportunities will have an incredibly tangible impact on increasing the well-being and quality of life of every citizen of Georgia. According to the World Bank, wrote Khokrishvili, using these opportunities in the Western Balkans, Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia were not considered for the status during the study period, can generate not only 6.7% economic growth, but also a large increase in foreign direct investment in these countries from EU member states. According to the former ambassador, the European and Euro-Atlantic integration of the country is the choice of the Georgian people and the constitutional obligation of the government to go towards it. Let us recognize the conditions presented by the European Commission and start fulfilling them immediately, Khokrishvili wrote. Meanwhile, this is how the ambassadors of the EU and France evaluate Georgia's European perspective and the aspirations of Georgian people who stand firm in their decision to bring Georgia back to Europe.
What I saw yesterday was a very large, dignified and peaceful manifestation of Georgia's pro-European choice. And leaving some of the comments of a political nature aside, for which I will not make comments other than to say that, as always, staying within lawful and peaceful means are essential. What I heard yesterday was many ordinary Georgians coming out, wishing Georgia to seize the moment and embrace the opportunities that have been given now from the European Union side and take the right steps forward in order to de facto and in reality move Georgia's European agenda forward. If I may just recall what the Commission said last Friday, which was to open a European perspective for Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia, which is not to be missed, a very clear yes from the European Commission that Georgia has the potential to become a future EU member. And yesterday we heard President Michel, who is well known in this country, also stressing that now is the time to acknowledge that Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia has its future within the European Union. So these are powerful messages, and at the same time, as we know, the opinion for Georgia was less favorable than the opinion for Ukraine and Moldova, which underlines the need now to take resolute steps forward to demonstrate these aspirations. And for that, we have a to-do list, if you'd like, from the European Commission saying what are the requirements for Georgia to advance. And I'm hoping, and we will see in a few days' time, if member states in the European Council will conclude the same as the European Commission. After which I think the message is very clear. Georgia's European destiny is in Georgia's hands, and it's time to work diligently to take the necessary steps to move the agenda forward.
What is being proposed, there are some grounds for hope and for mobilization and for optimism, because there is the recognition of the European perspective, and that is a very significant step forward. There's a clear roadmap of reform on how to move ahead. So that is two very optimistic, very positive result. It cannot come as a surprise that the EU also has expectations, and those cannot come as a surprise either. So what we want to see is mobilization and determination to move forward, and that is the sort of thing that we saw yesterday.
And now to our main interview of the week that Georgi Sagadze conducted for the Checkpoints DFC, U.S. International Development Finance Corporation. Its CEO, Scott Nathan, visited Tbilisi, Georgia, along with Riga, Latvia. In Latvia, CEO Nathan led the U.S. delegation to the 3C Summit in Riga, accompanied by representatives from the Departments of Commerce, Energy and State. CEO Nathan's participation focused on U.S. investments in the 3Cs countries and 3C DFC's Initiative Investment Fund. In Georgia, CEO Nathan met with current and prospective DFC clients, government leaders, and the local business community. He visited DFC clients Gazelle Finance, TBC Bank, and the American Hospital Tbilisi. With DFC's support, Gazelle Finance and the American Hospital Tbilisi are taking on additional activities to benefit displaced Ukrainians in Georgia. Please meet CEO of DFC, Scott Nathan, in a conversation with Georgi Isakadze.
Hi.
How are you?
Good to see you, Mr. Nathan.
Good to see you.
I'm Georgi Isakadze.
What a
I'm
pleasure to
editor
meet
of
you.
Forbes in Georgia and doing BMG here as well.
Great. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure meeting you
Thanks,
as well.
thanks for taking interest.
It's the best opportunity for the Georgian business community and for our listeners and followers to be aware about the details, taking into consideration that the last visit of DFC CEO was in 2018.
Yeah.
A lot has been changed since then, Mr. Nathan.
Yes.
So, at the same time, a lot has changed, especially in the region, in our particular region, called the Black Sea region, would you say so. Taking also into consideration another moment, your personal appointment, let me say so, confirmation by the Senate was in the beginning of February, 9th of February,
That's right.
as far as I remember,
Yeah.
just 2 weeks before Russia invaded
Yes.
to Ukraine. My first question will be, how DFC, formerly OPIC, has changed since the last visit of the CEO of DFC to Georgia?
Yeah. Well, it's been a number of years since
Indeed.
CEO. So first and foremost, when the previous CEO came, it was the office. It was it was OPEC. So
OPEC, correct.
yeah. So in late 2019, the Development Finance Corporation launched. But I think your question is really more about the region than about our organization. And it's been a tumultuous number of years. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected the world.
Absolutely.
And the Development Finance Corporation, the whole of the US government, pivoted to address that crisis. Specifically, my agency helped with vaccine distribution around the world, supporting Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, supporting the manufacturing of vaccines in regions throughout the world, India, several places in Africa. But really in 2022, for this region and for the world, as you say, 2 weeks after my confirmation on February 24th, had Russia's unprovoked, unjustified, brutal invasion and war on the people of Ukraine. And this has really been one more reason to show support for the region, show support for Georgia. It's a key part of my visit here, not only to visit the tangible results of our 30 years of support across a wide array of projects, but really to show even more support at this critical time after.
I want to share with you the photo, which was yesterday distributed by the U.S. Embassy in Georgia. Actually, it's the first project, let me say so, for us, for locals, I mean for Georgians. This is like the beginning of the new era in Georgia, which was actually one of the first projects of
Well, I had the pleasure of not only hearing about that project yesterday and meeting with the executive team that did the development, but I had the pleasure of staying in that hotel last night.
Okay.
So I had in fact, I think in the picture you just showed me, I could see the window of my hotel room.
You do?
Yes. And
I didn't know that.
Yes, I mean, but you know, hospitality, whether it's the Marriott Hotel you just showed me, or even in April of this year, the project we've most recently announced with the Ajari Group in Abu Stamani, the hospitality facility that we'll be financing, and we announced nearly $9 million of financing for that. So we have a long history, over 3 decades of supporting the hospitality sector. There have been many other sectors that we have supported across 60 projects. The Development Finance Corporation and our predecessor, the U.S. government, has supplied $800 million of financing, whether it's in logistics or hospitality. And then today, to see this fantastic facility where we are today, the American Hospital in Tbilisi, support for healthcare for the Georgian people. And today, we announced additional support for displaced Ukrainians.
$800 million US dollars. Can
Yes.
we consider it as total volume of the portfolio, correct? Isn't that?
That cumulatively,
Cumulative,
over
aggregate,
those three
over
decades.
those three
Yes,
decades.
exactly.
At the same time, while bringing back the issue about supporting Ukraine
Yes.
and a lot of things
Yes.
DFC is doing, DFC together with the Gazelle Finance
Right.
will support displaced Ukraine SMEs
Yes.
as well, and including in Georgia.
Right.
And could you be more specific about what is behind of this initiative? I want to
course.
follow the steps of
course.
your being supportive after another crisis which began by
Right.
24th of February.
Well, I should say two things. First, yesterday, the very first visit I made upon my arrival here was to Fruit Logistics, a company that has received financing from Gazelle Finance. It was amazing to see that facility. But we also had an opportunity to talk about what Gazelle Finance will be doing for small enterprises from Ukraine that are displaced here. It's critically important for the rebuilding of Ukraine, for the survival of the Ukrainian economy, to support businesses that are displaced from their own country and temporarily located here or elsewhere in the region. But for businesses that are here in Georgia, often women-owned and women-led, particularly for the Ukrainians whose in their family, often the men are staying in Ukraine to fight the war. But for the women and children to come here and be able to keep their businesses alive, so at the day that we hope comes very soon, that those businesses can return to Ukraine, that they're still intact. And that's this program that we announced yesterday. When the war started in February, like the rest of the U.S. government, we began looking for ways that we could support Ukraine, and I charged our team with making sure that they found every way possible to support Ukraine. We have many investments there. We wanted to make sure our partners were doing okay. But as we thought regionally, we wanted to show our support and find ways to support Ukraine and the whole region. That's one of the reasons why I'm here today.
Nathan, can we evaluate more about, I want to resume part of our beginning, like last 30 years of DFC in Georgia and in region as well. And would you evaluate all these activities happening last 30 years in Georgia and the region, and how could it be?
Well, I'm not only impressed, I'm really proud. I'm really proud of the support that the United States government has given to this region, but let's talk specifically about Georgia. You know, as you mentioned, $800 million of support cumulatively. We probably have $250 to $300 million of current support outstanding, whether it's on lending to small enterprises through the Bank of Georgia, a support we've given there, ongoing support of the hospitality sector, an investment we made in logistics to support FedEx.
PACE Group and 50 million.
And then finally the PACE Group, the Port of Poti. There couldn't be a more critical time to have an operating deep water port on the Black Sea, given Russia's blockade of the Ukrainian ports, the horrible implications for food security around the world that presents. It's terrific that we're able to support Georgia as a logistics center, as really a key link to help address these issues. So I evaluate our 30 years of support here as a testament to our partnership, the United States and Georgia, our close friendship, and the development of this country in a way that is really impressive and will continue in the future. The trajectory has got to continue to be upward. The enabling environment for that kind of investing needs to constantly improve, and it's a fantastic thing. We're looking for more opportunities to support more businesses to provide financing to, and I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to do that.
You mentioned about ongoing project as well,
Yeah.
financed and supported by DFC. I'm
Yeah.
talking about hospitality sector,
Right.
together with the Ajara Group, happening in Abastomani,
Right.
which is quite huge, 8.6 million.
8.6 million, you're right.
Yeah. So could you prioritize directions, sectors, which you prioritize when allocating
Right.
the funds? And how can we consider that which priorities do you identify for Georgia should be paid more attention? You mentioned about the ports, you mentioned about logistics, which are crucially important right now. So,
Well, first let me start globally.
please.
So President Biden has really emphasized that around the world there is a huge multi-trillion dollar annual infrastructure gap. We're very focused on providing support to help fill that infrastructure gap. And that infrastructure gap is in energy, and particularly we're focused on providing clean, sustainable energy that addresses the global climate crisis. That infrastructure gap is in communication. We're very focused on closing the digital divide in a trusted and safe way. Healthcare, critical to not just because of the pandemic, although that's obviously incredibly important. It's revealed the necessity of raising the level of healthcare around the world, providing critical care and resilience for future pandemics. And we want to support women and other underserved communities for financial inclusion, for the development of the economy, small business by small business. So that's our global perspective. And in regard to Georgia, there's certain strengths in the natural Georgian economy, logistics being really one of the key. We're looking for more opportunities in logistics, but healthcare, hospitality, areas that we've already been involved, supporting entrepreneurship and small businesses through on-lending. We would love to be able to find ways to support the energy sector. My understanding is that there are many potential projects that are teed up and are awaiting a clearer sort of enabling environment for those energy projects. We would love to be able to find ways that we can provide financial support there too.
It's investing in development, as far as I do understand. What makes the environment appealing for such investments?
Yeah, so the opportunity to make impact, as you say, through development, an enabling environment where you have transparency, adherence to high standards. From the United States perspective, we're not looking to cut corners. We want to provide support to projects that are at a high standard that supports a type of economy that benefits all. We don't want to provide financing that's unsustainable, that burdens countries with debt that they can't pay back. We're looking for projects that are commercially viable and stand on their own.
Okay. Mr. Nathan, we do have some projects. Some of them are suspended, that is usually happen because by the end of the day, Georgia is a part of the world and in the middle of the region where this disaster is happening called war in Ukraine, and before it's pandemic, which still exists as a post-pandemic, let me say so, and reverse happening a lot. At the same time, Georgia was paying a lot of attention during these 30 years to the priorities connected to our geopolitical location as well. How Georgia could pay more attention to strengthen its connection through ports, through other infrastructure? Did we miss any kind of opportunities during these 30 years? We could do more, as PACE is doing right at ease and making another opportunity for the deep port facilities, things like that. Is the infrastructure development crucially important for a country like Georgia is?
Well, first let's let's just touch on what's happened over 30 years. The picture you showed of 30 years ago, what the Marriott Hotel was like,
yes.
and what's it like now. We need to acknowledge
Absolutely
the massive progress that
agree.
has been made. It's incredibly impressive, and it's important to keep that trajectory going. So I don't want to point to areas that have been missed. I want to look for opportunities in the future to continue that trajectory. Development is going to happen when you have the kind of infrastructure that's physical, but also infrastructure that's based on reform, transparency, the enabling environment to support investment.
Institutional development.
Yes, you need institutional development, and it needs to keep advancing in order to attract foreign investment, to attract natural local investment, and demonstrate the commercial opportunities that keep the economy going. That's really the basis to employ people, to provide more capital for future development.
Okay, given the current tense, I'm talking about again the geopolitical situation, do you consider refocusing and increasing financing in the Black Sea region?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I mentioned it earlier, DFC is open for business. We want to find more opportunities across the sectors that we've touched on. It's important to continue our partnership with Georgia and to continue our partnership with other countries in the region, particularly at this critical time, to show our strong and close relationship. We are your partner and want to continue doing that.
Thanks for the partnership. And my last question is about DFC possible rep office in Georgia.
Yeah.
There were some talks, some conversations on the governmental level in the previous years, definitely.
Yeah.
Is it still on?
Yeah.
As a project maybe, or
so
how can you respond?
What's amazing is we've done $800 million of financing
Already.
across 60 projects without a representative
Absolutely.
here. We have deep ties with existing partners. I've met so many of them, businesswomen and businessmen who are doing incredible things here, and we want to keep those ties strong. We're considering what our global presence should be. The DFC is doing so much globally with very few people around the world. Almost all of us are based in DC, and we're considering a strategy for how to properly base people around the world. And of course, we're open to the idea of having somebody here.
Thank you so much, sir, for this interview and the opportunity. Good
Well,
luck
I
to
really
you.
appreciate the
Thank you so much.
opportunity. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, let us zoom in a little bit into an initiative which seems to be very human on the one hand and very timely and pragmatic even for Georgia as well on the other. I already mentioned that in Georgia, with DFC's support, Gazelle Finance is taking on additional activities to benefit displaced Ukrainians in Georgia. Natia Janil, the COO/CIO at Gazelle Finance, will provide further details.
Natia, thank you for your time, and thank you for taking the checkpoints questions here. DFC and Gazelle Finance announced an economic recovery facility, and its aim is to provide technical assistance to those SMEs from Ukraine that have decided to relocate their business to Georgia due to this unfortunate events that are unfolding in Russia, in Ukraine because of Russian aggression. We need some more details in this direction. Please, what this assistance stands for, what are the tools that you have for supporting Ukrainian SMEs in Georgia?
Thank you, Eleni. Yes, Gazelle Finance and the CEO of DFC, who is visiting Georgia these days, Scott Nathan, signed the agreement yesterday that is intended to help the companies that are displaced from Ukraine to Georgia. This is the technical assistance facility of $2.5 million. DFC contributed $1.5 million, while the other $1 million was supported by Dutch IFIs, FMO, and DGGF. This facility covers several products. It includes grant component, zero interest loan, and commercial investment and amount. And I will give you the simple examples how the companies can benefit from this facility.
Yes, please. Let's go through each component step by step so that our viewers and followers have the sense of what this support really stands for in a nutshell.
Yes, I mean, when in the new environment for the company, there are lots of things that they need to know, starting from legal framework, accounting and taxing policies, registration issues, access to finance. So grant component is intended to help those companies in getting this kind of advice from different providers, whether this is a legal company or an accounting company or a consulting company. Or the second component is the technical zero interest loan that can be used for covering operating expenses of the company, including the salaries temporarily for the staff. And the third one is the commercial capital investment amount that can be used by the company to expand its operations. This is slightly a bigger amount that cannot be covered either by grant component or zero interest loan. There is no minimum and maximum. All depends on the needs of the company and how it fits in this scheme. I should also mention that we are sector agnostic, meaning we are open for all the companies operating in each and every sector.
Are there some dominating sectors, Natia, that you see where, for example, Georgia draws more Ukrainian SMEs?
Absolutely, absolutely. Unfortunately, it's not for every company. Is it an easy possibility to relocate from one country to another? The practice showed that these are mainly the companies from IT or ICT sector or fintech companies. But as mentioned, a few Ukrainian companies already had some representation in Georgia. So this facility is intended mainly for the Ukrainian companies that have any kind of content related to Ukraine. This could be the relocation after the war or expansion intention for Georgian entity, as the business cannot be expanded in Ukraine. This is pretty much it. I just want to give one more explanation.
Who are these companies and the support that you together with DFC are providing? This should be Ukrainian SMEs that are already based in Georgia, right? You are not creating any motivation for Ukrainian companies to come here, so to say, right?
Yes, I mean, this completely excludes brain draining from Ukraine. These are the companies that are already displaced from Ukraine to Georgia, or are in the process of displacing in Georgia, or already had their representation in Georgia even before the war started. So we exclude brain draining. We don't want that, but unfortunately, few companies are not able to continue their operations in Ukraine because of the war, and this facility only intends to support them. to support their country's economy. Alongside, we are supporting the Georgian economy as well, because they will be
And let
placed
us
in Georgia.
elaborate a little bit on that also. Natia, I clearly understand what is the, so to say, corporate responsibility part of all of this. And I think it is our duty, and we should thank Gazelle Finance and DFC in this regard, definitely, to support Ukraine as it is by every means that we can in this very unjust war, of course. But what are some benefits in all of this for Georgia, even if we consider that after the war ends and Ukraine wins, these companies might decide to return back to their country?
Yes, I mean, I should start with knowledge sharing. IT and ICT sectors are very well developed in Ukraine. So by providing assistance to these companies in Georgia, we are helping Georgian IT and ICT sector to adopt these knowledges and know-hows from the Ukrainian companies. Direct or indirect contribution is also to support Georgian economy, because these companies, I'm sure, because Georgia is a good place for doing business, I'm sure they will be willing to remain at least some portion of their business in Georgia once the war is finished. Plus, of course, if they are able to do so, they will shift their employees from Ukraine, but there is a possibility that there will be additional employment opportunities for Georgia and those companies as well. It definitely has humanitarian component in it, just to support the country and the companies that are in need during these difficult times. And with the support of our investors, GFC, FMO, DGGF, this possibility, this idea was very well supported in a very efficient way from their side without bureaucracy. And we are in the final stage of executing this project. We are preparing the platform on Gazelle Finance website that should be operational soon. That should be very helpful tool for the companies and for the individuals that are displaced in Georgia to get the information about pretty much everything, whether it's the state entities, how the registration of the company should be done, the consulting companies, legal companies, contact information, everything, plus everything that the new person might need in a completely new environment, whether it's information about schools, colleges, and etc. That could be the reason. And on top of that, we know that males are not allowed to leave Ukraine because of the war. So partially, it's also helping women entrepreneurs, displaced women entrepreneurs. So we anticipate that most of the entrepreneurs that are coming to Georgia are women because of this allowance of leaving the country. So another big component for that is to support Ukrainian women entrepreneurs to continue their businesses in Georgia as they choose it to be a safe and good destination for their businesses.
Thank you, Natia, for these details, very interesting ones. I wish DFC and Gazelle Finance very big success in this very good deed that you are doing here. And I encourage all Ukrainian SMEs that are in Georgia to check Gazelle Finance's webpage and look for their platform and use this opportunity that is generously provided for them. Thank you for the interview again.
Thank you, Elena. The site is not operational. I mean, the new platform is not operational yet, but they can contact us anytime. It will be operational soon, but it does not, there is no barrier to contact Gazelle Finance right now in case there is a need of what we discussed today. So we are accepting all the calls and offers from Ukrainian companies already. Thank you very much.
Speaking of impact, our senior reporter, Georgi Aronia, was working on a very interesting topic, and that's social economy. What was the inspiration to dig deeper into the concept? Georgi will tell us more. Georgi, welcome to the checkpoints, and let us tell our viewers and followers what was the spirit of the event and why this focus on social economy and why now?
Well, with pleasure, Elena. The inspiration came from the first impact fund that was launched in Georgia last week. With the launch of Axiom, Georgian investors will have an opportunity to invest in businesses with social causes, while existing social enterprises will be empowered through various programs provided by the fund. It is worth mentioning that the event was very dynamic. There was a formal reception and an exhibition during which social entrepreneurs introduced their products to the guests. I managed to talk to the fund's manager, one of the investors, and the representative of the European Venture Philanthropy Association. The launch of the first Georgian Impact Fund is a very important precedent that will not only empower social enterprises, but play a crucial part in the development of the investment environment in our country.
Thank you, Georgi, for this attendance effect that we had here, and thank you for your involvement. It's high time to watch what Georgi has pulled together for the checkpoints this week.
Last week, the presentation of the first Georgian Impact Fund called Axiom was held in Hotel Radisson Blu Iberia. With the establishment of the first Impact Fund in the country, Georgian investors and all interested parties will have a unique opportunity to invest in businesses that are championing social causes.
Today we are presenting the Impact Investment Fund Axiom, which is on the mission to develop Georgian social economy by empowering existing social enterprises. For the next 5 years, Axiom aims at supporting 10 social enterprises. Our fund has been established by the Center for Strategic Research and Development of Georgia with the support of the European Union and the European Venture Philanthropy Association. We will support social enterprises through 3 instruments. First is the need-based financial support, which would be provided through grants and 0% loan mechanisms. The second component is the support of the organizational development through the help with strategic management, marketing, sales, and future investments. The third, of course, is the empowerment of social enterprises through social impact planning and execution.
European experience of impact investing and the trends were discussed by the invited international guests with many years of experience in the field of private equity, venture capital investments, and development of impact funds and social enterprises. In attendance was Eva Konchal, the manager at the European Venture Philanthropy Association, who talked about the importance of the launch of the first impact fund in Georgia.
I'm really excited that we are meeting today with such an amazing group of people, business entrepreneurs, owners of companies in Georgia, at an event when we will be launching the first impact fund in Georgia. This is really going very well right now. We have first impact investors that will be supporting this fund, and I'm really happy this is the first fund. So Georgians are also joining now a large group of people globally that are really moving towards impact investment. So using traditional investment approach to address different social challenges, to address climate challenges, to address employment of young people, health issues, and so on.
An exhibition of social enterprises was organized as a part of the event. Social entrepreneurs introduced their products to the guests and emphasized the creation of the fund as a unique opportunity for them to scale up their economic and social impact. Axiom's impact investor Nikola Zalavidze highlighted the importance of developing and supporting impact investments in Georgia and achieving sustainable social and environmental goals with the engagement of the business sector.
Participation in this project is very important, as this sphere requires development. My partners and I have been investing in social causes for years and created several successful ventures. We are very happy that this process will continue in an organized fashion, together with Center of Strategic Research and Development of Georgia and European Venture Philanthropy Association.
For many years, philanthropy and investing have been thought of as separate disciplines, one championing social change, the other financial gain. The idea that the two approaches could be integrated into the same deals, in essence delivering a financial return while doing good, struck most philanthropists and investors as far-fetched. Later came impact investing. With the launch of the first Georgian Impact Fund, the possibility of investing in businesses with a social cause became reality.
The checkpoints is drawing to an end, but before I say goodbye, you will get a chance to meet the world's #1 culture and brand expert right now.
Our guest is one of our times maybe most iconic and recognized branding, culture and transformation expert, having introduced such terms as neuromarketing, texting, small data and contextual marketing. By the way, guys, Time magazine named him as one of the world's 100 most influential people. In 2022, our guest was selected as my favorite LinkedIn's #1. He was the first as an influencer in the US, and for 8 years running, the prestigious Thinker 50 board has listed him among the world's top 50 business thinkers. He's a frequent contributor to the New York Times, Financial Times, and Fast Company, and I'm so happy that today, finally, he will be contributing to Business Media Georgia and the Checkpoints and the Georgian Forbes. So, ladies and gentlemen, Martin Lindström, great to have you with us here.
Well, great to be here. And listen, I'm so sad that you didn't say my work for Forbes, because
You did?
Yeah, I've been writing for Forbes. Here we go.
You've been contributing, or how was that, Martin?
Yeah, I have. So here we go. It's not just Time magazine and all those other people.
Other people.
Yeah, exactly.
They will be upset listening to this. Yeah, good friends and good competitor. Is it your first time being in Georgia?
No. I've actually been here once before, where I did ethnographic visits, where I was moving in with local folks to understand their culture, to understand how we live in Georgia, how people think and feel. So
Where was that?
Well, I quite often do that in almost in every country in the world. I've done it in more than 100 countries across the world, with 3,000 families I moved into and lived with over the last almost 20 years.
While it's not your first visit, tell me about your first impression. By then, what was the first impression about Georgia?
People from Georgia are very unique. I've never been, I'm not kidding here, I've never been to a country before where you're so welcomed, and literally, and you can recognize this, they invite you home to a dinner. And it's almost like you just meet them on the street, you're invited straight into the home. Now, I also lived in Switzerland. They will never, ever in a million years do that. Here in Georgia, you're welcomed home, and they have a Toastmaster. The Toastmaster. And what's amazing is when you go across the country, each of the families have different traditions. And as you know, the wine and the grapes are so unique. So what I felt was, this is a country with a very deep history, lots of diversity, so many rituals, so many traditions which are defining this place. It's a very rich country, and I was blown away by it, because if you go to other countries, you would not feel that. This is really different here.
Martin, tell me, if you had time to think about how Georgia is exploring or developing its asset as its culture and history is.
It's horrible. It's horrible because you're sitting here with all this amazing talent. You have it's an unpolished diamond. You have amazing creative people. You have an amazing history. You have diversity with the religions which have been in and out. I mean, I've never been to a place where you have so many religions, so many churches, mosques, synagogues just next to each other. That creates creativity. You invented the puppet theater. You have the most unique font in the world. You have 3,000 grapes. You had the Spice Silk Road going through. All these things have created a very rich culture. But it's completely unknown outside Georgia. Yes, the Russia knows about it. I don't think we can use that for a lot these days.
Yeah.
That was it. But we have the whole central part of Europe. They have no idea. So still no idea. No, they don't. And I think that's a shame. Just to get here is a nightmare. It takes almost 24 hours for most people to fly into it, even though it's just around the corner. So I think there's enormous potential. This is a country which can build a very strong country brand, just in the line as you have France or Switzerland and Germany and UK. But I think we need to unleash that creativity, and hopefully that will happen now.
Hopefully. Tell me more about what does it mean being a branding, culture, and transformation expert together? Like yourself is, I need some
education. Yeah, maybe I need to rebrand myself.
Yes,
yeah.
wow.
Well, listen, a brand, have to remember, is to manage perception. It is to be very focused. I'll give you an example, and
Please,
this is the test.
Ahead.
If I say one word now, then you have to think about what brand owns this word. If I take the word search. What company would you think about if I say search?
You mean association with
it
search?
Could be a brand.
Brand.
Yeah.
Search. It's definitely some connected to internet. Google.
Google. Here we go. One word, search. How come they own it? Well, because they, through so many years, have primed you to think about that. Now, what's so interesting is Google is not the best search engine in the world. We think they are because we've been brainwashed. You can take Volvo, that's safety. You can take Magic, it's Disney. What is the one word for Georgia? This is point number one. That is branding. You are very succinct, very focused. The second thing is, how do you make the population align themselves to it? If I go to Thailand, it's the land of the smiles, okay? If you go to Switzerland, it's all about accuracy and the watch, right? So you have different countries and cultures which reflect that message. That's point number two. Third is transformation. How do you transform this country, the culture, the brand, the service, so it evolves with time? It's not standing still in the past. Some countries have done that. Russia stands still. Then you have other ones which are very progressive. South Korea, right? So culture, transformation, and branding really fits together very well.
Okay, tell me then, I'll do my best as an interviewer. Tell me about such terms as neuromarketing, texting, small data, and contextual marketing.
In 30
I'm trying
seconds.
to do my best.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
doing
definitely
it.
have some more samples or examples in really.
I'm impressed. Do you know what? Creativity is all about combining two ordinary things in a new way. Back in the days, I decided to say, if you want to evolve the concept of building brands, you need to combine it with new things. So I took the idea of marketing, I took neuroscience, and it became neuromarketing, right? I combined two ordinary things in a new way, and that became a whole new discipline. When it comes to some of the other terms like contextual marketing, well, that appeared in 1994 when the World Wide Web was appearing. It basically is to send the right message to the right audience at the right time. Back in the days, we couldn't do that. No. You had a cinema, you're sending a message, it was fixed. Now it's all contextual. So a lot of my work is to predict the future 5 minutes before it happens. That means suddenly I can take the credit for it. In reality, I was just making it up, but it works, right?
Is this what you're going to be sharing with the locals during your existing trip to Georgia? I mean, let's assume, last my two questions. What are you going to be talking about here?
Well, tomorrow I'm going to talk about the idea of what is happening as a consequence of the aftermath of COVID-19, the situation we're in right now in the world, but also how companies transform given the situation we're in right now. And what's fascinating is that in the old days, we had what we call an entry point. Procter & Gamble developed a term called entry point. We have 7 entry points in our lives. For example, one is I expect a newborn baby. Guess what? There is baby equipment everywhere. When I see it, I get new neighbors, I get new kids, I get new friends. That's an entry point. We have 7 of those. Because of COVID-19 and because of the aftermath of that, we're now seeing there is, for the first time ever, an 8th entry point happening, a global synchronized behavioral change. That is because we are behaving completely differently right now. I'm going to talk about the 8th entry point tomorrow.
At the same time, I'm trying to follow at least the following your books. I mean, Ministry of Common Sense, Biology, Small Data. Is there anything you will be talking about out from these books as well? Or?
Yeah, I'll talk a lot about how companies evolve when they have bureaucracy and complexity and all that stuff which are making life difficult as an employee. How do we still make sure innovation stay intact? And we're also going to talk about the subconscious behavior, how you and I behave in an irrational way, and how we work with consumers and companies to make those two things come together. Hopefully, in the end of the day, to show how brands can be built and thrive despite a potential recession ahead.
I will share by my, I hopefully I'll be there as well, just to share everything.
That'd be amazing.
On my behalf. But tell me about the Qatari Foundation, if you know anything about your local hosts, how they are doing and what they are trying to cover.
Well, I'm not a representative for them.
I know.
They've invited me in to speak on their behalf, but what I understand from the foundation is that they want to create a framework where creativity can thrive.
Correct.
And where they can give creatives the chance of using their talents within safe frames, which I think is a brilliant idea.
Taking into consideration that it's the first attempt of the venture fund doing the following covering. I'm mostly covering 99% of the news happening in this country in the fields of economic and business. To be honest, it will be the first and hopefully definitely going to be a successful attempt.
Well, I think there's a good chance for it. Why is that? Because this is a perfect timing. I mean, you have 20,000 programmers coming from Russia right now into Ukraine and into this place now to Georgia, where they literally are having amazing talent. And it means that if we can get those people, we can get the people from Ukraine, then I think Georgia is standing in a very unique position with a lot of talent, which are not necessarily priced at the same level as people in the UK or elsewhere. So you can actually use that as a foundation to create a creative hub. And if you can give people the tools and the network to do it, why not do it? And I think the timing is perfect for it.
Thank you so much for your time, Mark.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the show. Follow us on bm.g and forbes.g. Till next Sunday.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.